this set of principles sort of unifies, it's more consistent across countries and across communities, and they're very straightforward in terms of what they mean. So what does it mean to make your data fair? You've probably seen this list before, so I'm not going to go through every single aspect. It addresses both data and metadata. Metadata being the data about data, so how you describe your data. And we will go in detail about into every single one of them. So what it means exactly for data to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. What are the things you have to look at? What are the things you have to worry about if you're trying to publish your data fair? The SSHOC consortium covers the whole data cycle, the life cycle, so trying to follow the FAIR principles, so from the concept through to analysis, so collection, processing, distribution, discovery, analysis, repurposing, and of course archiving and reuse. Some key elements. So if you only had to take one thing away, probably should put this at the end, but it's going to happen to pick in it as well. So a persistent identifier. So the DOI that we saw earlier, that code that is included in the citation, that DOI is very important, as opposed to a URL, which in 2 years from now may not be valid anymore. You may click it and it will just return an error. A DOI it's alive forever. It's a permanent identifier, and even if the data will not be available anymore, perhaps the data will be moved, the metadata will still be there, and that metadata should give you some information about where the data is accessible from. Yeah, so keep in mind this DOI, it's very, very important. So a sufficient set of metadata as well. So the better you describe your data set with this metadata, the more findable it will be in a catalog. So think about when you describe your metadata, so it is a sufficient and standardized set of metadata to enhance findability, interoperability, and reusability. So the quality of this is very important. So when you think about it, it's things like the abstract keywords, the type of data, sample size, etc. And then a clear license. So depending on the access level that the data will be available under, the license will apply. And there are different licenses depending on, so for example, for open access, you have Creative Commons International, is very well known. And then for data that is restricted, depending on where you're publishing your data, there will be what we call an end user license, which is just a set of terms and conditions that applies to the use of that data. And I also included a paper here that might be it's very interesting. It's on the fairness of services, but I just linked it in there for you to have to read through if you wish. So now going into detail of, about all of the principles. So is data findable? So again, the main point here is DOI. So the data set should have a unique permanent address, the keyword there being permanent, that would allow it to be found using discovery portals. And it should be part of the dataset citation. So when you search for data, you should always look in the data citation, does this have a DOI? And if you're referencing it in your paper, you should also include that DOI. If people want to go and search for this data, they can find it. And I gave an example there. It's a collection in our catalog, the lived experience of migration, and that is the DOI there. And if you click on that, it will take you to where the data can be accessed from. Another aspect is that I mentioned already is the very the detailed and rich metadata. So this can be either text-based or machine-readable metadata that describes the data set and is used to index data sets in data catalogs. And we'll have a look at what that means later. And allow them to be found efficiently through discovery portals. So for example, we have the EMM survey registry, which we'll also have a look at. You can just ask, how many of you have heard of the EMM survey registry?
We produced it.
Yeah, but you, in the room, how many people have, yeah?
Probably everyone.
Yeah, probably, okay. It's just because you weren't very clear about how, okay, yeah. And then we have the UKDS data catalog, so that is our data catalog, and then we have the CESDA data catalog. So the key here is, does your data set have a persistent identifier? And in terms of how important this DOI is, we have a cite the data video as well that we produced.
We're living in a world of data.
It's important to cite data correctly, much in the way that you would cite an article, a website, or an image.
Two reasons to cite data correctly. The first is that it's an acknowledgement of a primary source that's being used in research. So it's good scholarly practice to cite data in the same way that you might cite a book as a primary source. The second reason is for research funders to be able to track the use of the data that they support.
People want to go back and look at the analysis that's been done. And unless you know where the data sets come from, then you're not sure that the analysis has actually been done correctly.
This is the foundation of social research and research in general, and it is about finding the truth, finding the patterns.
People can build on what you've done, so they're more likely to cite you, and that's really good for you as a researcher as you're developing your career and your research.
It's quite a simple task to cite data correctly, so the UK Data Service provides a kind of copy and paste function.
DOI is a digital object identifier, and every data set should have this.
The DOI is a web address which will never disappear, it remains constant. It's like a fingerprint. It's made up of a string of letters. The first part is references the publisher. For example, the UK Data Service has a number. The second part is the name of the data collection. The next part is the version.
It's kind of like if you lose your bank card, you still have your account number. You don't lose that. Same with the dataset. If the dataset moves, you still have the DOI to identify the data.
It allows the funders to get visibility of who's using the data that they supported.
If there wasn't the funding available, the ESRC's funding, for example, for Understanding Society, or even the UK Data Service itself, wouldn't be able to continue. So researchers have a really important role to play if they want the data that they rely on to continue to be made accessible to them.
But also, as a data producer, studies like Understanding Society, we try to publicise research using our data because it demonstrates the value of the study. And so through our website and through our conversations with government departments, we would be telling them about your research if we know about it because you cited our study.
So to give an example here, I picked this one from Dataverse. It's a migration and HIV risk in India, places of origin study. I included a short description of the data at the top, but this is how the page looks like when you go to access it, and the DOI is included right there in the citation. So that was one example. You also have the data metrics, which is very important, and we'll look at that as well later. So moving on to data, is data accessible? So accessible does not necessarily mean open. It can be open, and there's a huge drive and interest in making data open these days, but it doesn't have to be, especially if it's sensitive data. This is mostly the case sometimes for qualitative data, but especially for survey data, if you include details that might help identify participants, then of course you might not be able to make that data open. So some data needs to be placed under these access restrictions, but the key here is that access should be implemented using a standardized protocol. So it should be very clear when someone comes to your data set, what is the access level, and that access level should be described by a standardized protocol. The terms and conditions governing access and reuse should be clear, standardized, and transparent. And so this is our three-tier access options. But every archive, every repository will have a version of this. So you, of course, you have open data, and then you have safeguarded data. So for data that still contains a residual risk of identification, and this would be the data that would be placed under an end user license. So it's not just a license that allows reuse very widely and openly. And there might be special agreements as well for data that is particularly sensitive. You might need the permission from the researcher who produced the data to access it. And it might be that the data needs an embargo as well. So if the initial research team needs to still publish their findings, they might ask for an embargo period. And the length of this can vary. For example, we do up to 12 months in the initial stage, and then we can increase that, we can extend that, sorry. And then we have controlled data, and this is data that is very, very sensitive, that allows identification, where you would have postcodes, for example. So, and this data is is available from safe room access. And whoever wishes to access that would have to go through a course, and you'll have to take a test as well, just to be vetted, to show that you understand that there's some terms and conditions, that is very sensitive data that is being accessed, and that that you will have to comply with certain, so for example, you would be in a room and you would not be allowed to take pictures of the screen, you would not be able to take notes. All the outputs that you're producing will have to be checked by a team before you're allowed to include them in your paper, that sort of thing. Now, I included some examples, so in terms of is the data accessible? So here from Zenodo, we have this data set, and the access level is mentioned at the very top, so it's open access there. And